Delegate Orientation to the CSHP House of Delegates, presented by Vicki Ferraresi.
Hi everyone, welcome to our new online webinar of the Delegate Orientation to the CSHP House of Delegates. I'm Vicki Ferraresi, the current chair of the House of Delegates, and I'm glad that you could join me today as we go through the process for participating in the House of Delegates. First of all, let's get some business out of the way and go over the objectives for your continuing education for this program. First of all, we're going to describe the role of the House of Delegates within CSHP, describe the function of delegates to the House of Delegates, explain the CSHP decision-making and policy development process. We're going to distinguish between the role of the House of Delegates and the Board of Directors in these processes, and finally detail how members can influence the decisions and actions of the House of Delegates. The CSHP House of Delegates are defined in the bylaws in Article 8. They share responsibility for governance with the Board of Directors and are charged with the creation and review of professional policy for the organization. The House can establish its own rules and procedures within the context of the bylaws and can approve, modify, or disapprove proposals, reports, actions, or resolutions. The House of Delegates may make recommendations to the Board of Directors and oversee the Committee on Nomination. Why does CSHP need to have professional policy? Well, we can always refer to laws and regulations to guide our practice, and we have our own opinions and beliefs. But CSHP needs an official opinion on matters affecting the profession in order to direct action on matters affecting the profession and CSHP members, provide services of value to members, and guide CSHP in responding to questions from the media, the public, and members. So, for example, if the press were to call the office, the CSHP office, and ask a question, what do you think about Vicodin becoming Schedule 2? If we had a policy on that matter, Dawn could look at that, the CEO could look at that policy and speak on behalf of CSHP with confidence, knowing that she's reflecting the opinion of CSHP. If we don't have policy, we do refer as an affiliate chapter to ASHP policy. But we really feel that we should have our own policy, and CSHP is now in the process of reviewing the entire ASHP policy catalog to strengthen our own policy catalog as an independent organization. The CSHP House of Delegates meets annually at seminar, our annual meeting. Preparation for a meeting at seminar now occurs at the Regional Delegate Conferences, the RDCs, and we'll talk a little bit more about that later. The composition of the House of Delegates comprises people from regional chapters, student chapters, CPTA, which represents our technicians now in California, CPHA, we have 2 delegates that sit on in the House of Delegates from CPHA, the officers and directors of CSHP, and any past president of CSHP is allowed to be seated as a delegate. The chair of the House of Delegates presides over meetings of the House of Delegates. The chair of the House is a member of the CSHP board, as well as the newly created executive committee, which formerly was termed the Committee on Finance. The chair of the House acts as a resource to the delegates, organizes the regional delegate conferences, appoints the Committee on Nominations, is the board liaison to CON, and convenes and facilitates the open forum at seminar, where delegates are welcome to come to discuss issues before the House of Delegates. And finally, orients new delegates to the House of Delegates. The business of the House. First, I'd like to mention we're going to talk about modern rules of order, proposals, resolutions, recommendations, new business, and caucuses. I'm going to confess that when I was a new delegate, or before I was even a delegate, I've been a member of CSHP for a very long time, and I was very confused about the difference between proposals, resolutions, recommendations, and new business. We'll go over all of that and hopefully clarify it for you. First of all, the modern Rules of Order is an alternative to Robert's Rules of Order. This is a guideline that the House of Delegates approved last year in 2012 for us to manage our meetings. So throughout CSHP, starting in November last year, 2012, we started using modern Rules of Order. It's simpler and more straightforward than Robert's Rules of Orders. It avoids confusing procedural rules, but still allows for consensus decision-making and provides a framework for efficiency and fairness. The Board of Directors started using this at our January board meeting in 2013, and we found that our meetings moved along in a faster, less confusing way because we could just agree by consensus when there seems to be consensus. In a smaller meeting like the Board of Directors, we don't have to even necessarily vote on an issue if the chair of the meeting is pretty confident that there's consensus. There is a process, just as with Robert's Rules of Orders, for people to object and to make motions so that everybody has a chance to be heard. But this allows us to be more efficient with our time, and again, it's just a simpler, more straightforward process. CSHP uses the STP, Situation, Target, Proposal process for decision making. It's a format for articulating an idea. It allows for the analysis and development of your idea and is used to develop proposals, resolutions, recommendations, or new business. It's very useful to analyze problems either by yourself or in a group. By forcing you to put your ideas in writing, you actually, when you create the situation part, you look at the current process and really decide. It really helps you formulate an idea for what you want, the change you want to happen. It helps you analyze problems, as I said, and it's useful in facilitating a problem solving or planning group, and it helps format proposals that you can take forward to decision makers. The situation refers to what is the current situation. Here, somebody should look at the history of what the current issue is, referring to bylaws, CSHP current policy, ASHP policy, any pertinent laws, regulations, and the CSHP strategic plan. A second thing to look at, has there been previous action on this topic? And finally, what do other organizations do around this topic, or what is their opinion on the topic? So an example would be when we considered moving away from Robert's Rules of Order to modern Rules of Order, we looked at what organizations had adopted modern Rules of Order and what were their reasons for doing so. The target consists of what would you like to occur and what do you want to avoid. So this is trying to look forward and predict what you would like to have happen. And finally, the P stands for proposal, where you write the proposal as you see it. Include who needs to do what. It's really not adequate for you to say, as the proposal, CSHP needs to have a proposal on X. Please write the proposal as you see it, and if it needs to be tweaked, or if you need help with that, there are plenty of people within CSHP on the board, the officers, other delegates who'd be happy to help you with that. So the first way of bringing ideas forward is proposals. These are items that have been brought to the House of Delegates by the Board of Directors of CSHP. These may have originated from recommendations, resolutions, the work of committees, councils, or task forces, which we call CCTFs. They're always formatted as an STP in that situation, target, proposal format. and generally distributed with the first or subsequent distributions to the House of Delegates. And they may be amended before they're voted on in the House of Delegates. Resolutions. What's a resolution? This is a document that can be submitted by any two active members in writing on the appropriate form. It needs to be signed by the members and received by CSHP at least 30 days prior to the first meeting of the House of Delegates. At the board meeting immediately prior to the annual meeting of the House of Delegates, the board of directors will review and make a recommendation to the House of Delegates. The item will be discussed at the RDCs, the open forum, and the House of Delegates. We had one resolution presented to us this year prior to the RDCs, and that should have been discussed at the RDC if you attended it. I did attend one of the RDCs, and we did go over the resolution. It will be brought to this House of Delegates and voted on, and the recommendation can be, wait, I'm going to go back to the previous slide. The resolution, the board will make a recommendation to either approve, to amend. It may go back to the House of Delegates for more consideration. It won't necessarily be voted on and approved. It depends on what the resolution entails. So the outcome can vary. Recommendations. A recommendation, according to our bylaws, is a request to address an issue, need, or problem. It's made verbally by a delegate during either meeting of the House of Delegates. It must also be in writing on the appropriate form. There's a form for recommendations, just as there's a form for the resolutions. There will not be any debate, discussion, or voting on any of the recommendations in the current session of the House of Delegates, and it will go to the Board of Directors for their consideration. Finally, new business is an item that can be submitted by any delegate. The deadline for new business at the House of Delegates currently is prior to the second meeting of the House of Delegates. We currently have 2 meetings at our annual meeting at Seminar. We are going to be moving to having 1 meeting. That's going to happen next year in 2014, but for now we have 2 meetings, so the deadline for new business is 5 p.m. on Saturday before the second meeting of the House, which will be on Sunday, November 3rd. It also must be in writing on the appropriate form, and when new business is addressed on the agenda at the second meeting of the House, the delegate who submitted the item will read the motion with the background information. If the item is gets a second, the floor then will be open for discussion, and then a vote will be taken. If there is no second to the motion, there will be no further action, and the new business will not be passed. The Board of Directors will follow up on the item. Now, the action taken by the House of Delegates. 2/3 of the delegates entitled to vote must be present, and that constitutes a quorum. If 2/3 of the delegates are not entitled and somebody calls for a quorum, then there cannot be a vote on any issue, and the House will need to close their business and adjourn. Every delegate gets 1 vote, and motions are carried by a simple majority vote. Now, on all the previous pieces of business that we just discussed, the House of Delegates may approve, modify, or disapprove an item. Items that are modified or disapproved by the House of Delegates can return to the Board of Directors for some more work and may be represented to the House of Delegates the following year. Caucuses. What's a caucus? A caucus is basically a meeting of supporters or members of a specific group so that they can get together and talk about the issues. At CSHP, we provide rooms to delegations in order for you to meet and discuss the proposals or the issues. For example, a chapter may want to schedule a caucus so that they can craft some new language for an existing proposal, or maybe something has tweak their attention and they want to create a new recommendation, and we provide space for them to have their meeting or their caucus. There's a form to reserve a caucus room. If you know that you want to do this prior to seminar, you can mail it in before the meeting, or contact the CSHP help desk once you're at seminar. I think by the time you're listening to this in 2013, it's probably going to be too late to mail in your form, so you'll need to contact the CSHP help desk to get a room for your caucus. So now I want to turn my attention to the Board of Directors accountability to the House of Delegates. Once the Board of Directors receives a proposal, a resolution, or an item of new business, or a recommendation, the Board will either take action to implement the idea or refer it to a council, committee, or task force, a CCTF, and report any final action or outcome at the next meeting of the House of Delegates. In addition, the persons who bring forward the idea are personally contacted by letter and to be updated on the progress of their idea. And that's my job to make sure that this is all done. The chair of the House of Delegates assures that this is completed and that the board is accountable to the House of Delegates, rather. Delegate responsibilities. What are your responsibilities? Delegates to the House of Delegates should become familiar with the CSHP policy-making process. You should be representing your chapter at the House of Delegates. Bring issues on behalf of members of your chapter to the House of Delegates. Report back to your chapter on issues before the House of Delegates. And participate in the regional delegate conferences, the open forum, which again is held at seminar, and obviously attend the annual meeting of the House of Delegates. Attendance at the regional delegate conferences is required, and all delegates should plan to attend these. We post the save the date as early as we can, and we determine the date at the January board meeting. So hopefully you can all clear your calendars and attend the regional delegate conference. What resources are available to you to help decision making and to learn about this process? The following are all available on the CSHP website: the bylaws, the current CSHP professional policy catalog, the ASHP professional catalog. The policy catalog resides on the ASHP website, but I believe we have a link to it for you. We have a review article entitled The CSHP Policy Development Process, and that reviews what we've just discussed here. So if you want to read something in addition to viewing this webinar, that might be useful for you. The regulations of the House of Delegates, and I want to let you all know that I'm actually bringing forward a proposal to the House to update the regulations of the House of Delegates. They have not been updated since 1992, and I think it's about time that they were looked at again. The basics of parliamentary procedure. This needs to be updated. It hasn't been done yet. It does refer to Robert's Rules of Orders, and I will be updating that probably right after seminar. There's an article on the STP, the Situation Target Proposal Process, and the CSHP Strategic Plan, and all the forms that we've referred to earlier in order for you to submit your ideas to the House or to the Board are available on the CSHP website under the House of Delegates. What materials are available to you for participating in the House of Delegates? These have been sent to you in an email distribution, and also posted on the website. I believe actually what you got were links to the postings on the website. You don't actually have the documents sent directly to you. But residing on the CSHP House of Delegates website are the proposals. This year, for 2013, we have 2 resolutions. The meeting time, the meeting agenda, the roster of delegates, so you can see who's going to be seated with you, where to find resources, and information about the regional delegate conferences which were held on September 28th. Events for delegates to attend. We had the regional delegate conferences. The open forum, again, it's a venue to discuss issues before the House of Delegates or other issues that may come before the House of Delegates. The town hall is a venue to discuss concerns for the profession, and obviously you're welcome to attend that as well. The President's Reception honors the Pharmacist of the Year with a silent auction to benefit the CSHP Foundation, and the meetings of the House of Delegates. This year we'll have 2 meetings on Thursday, October 31st, and again on Sunday, November the 3rd. Please note that the meeting time of the meeting on Sunday is going to be earlier than we've traditionally had it. It's going to start in the morning and be finished before the closing session so that all the delegates can go to the closing session. The regional delegate conferences, I want to say a few words about that. These are held about 5 weeks prior to the House of Delegates meeting, and we've created them kind of to follow the pattern of ASHP. These are we hold currently 5 regional meetings on the same day. Board members attend the meetings, and it's the purpose is to facilitate discussion on the matters prior to the House of Delegates, to help delegates be prepared to fully participate in the House of Delegates. And as I mentioned earlier, it is required that all delegates attend. It offers an opportunity to review the materials before the House, initiate discussion on the issues, recommend or think about changes that you want to make to any policy, and to take your ideas back to chapters so that then you can come back to the House of Delegates knowing what your chapter members feel about various issues. And that's my presentation. If you have questions, please send them to me. My email is listed below, bferraraci@pathwayshealth.org, and I'd be happy to answer your questions for you. If you have questions about any proposals, you can send those to me, and I will try to get back to you prior to being at seminar. And I hope that you will attend both sessions of the House of Delegates and come to the open forum. And finally, last but not least, information about how you can claim your CPE credit for this presentation. Step number 1, visit www.healthsystemce.org, log in with your profile, locate the CPE course for 2013 House of Delegate Orientation, and enter the secret code, HOD1024. And if you need any assistance with this process to obtain your CE, please email Rebecca Broger at rebecca@cshp.org. I thank you for attending this webinar, and I hope that you've learned a little bit about the CSHP decision-making process and how you can participate. Thank you.